She trusts the man who hides something, not because it's safe, but because it reminds her of home. You didn't look away. That's why she stayed. You stared with no explanation, no confession, no softness, like the father who never apologized, only smoked in silence while her tears dried without meaning. She doesn't want your soul. She wants your shadow, the part of you that resists being known. The silence that makes her instincts turn rabid, the stillness that mirrors her mother's bed after betrayal. And when you lie calmly, without tremble, something ancient in her exhales. She doesn't believe you, but she needs the illusion, because truth destroys control. And she'd rather feel steady inside a well-constructed lie than spiral in the chaos of honesty. Speak less, reveal less. Let her invent you. If this whisper sounds like something you've lived before, let it return. Like the video, leave a wound in the comments. Subscribe if your silence still remembers hers. What she trusts isn't your goodness, it's your refusal to explain yourself. You thought her smile was approval. It wasn't. It was recognition. The way a key recognizes the absence of a lock, a knowing curve formed not by joy, but by confirmation. She saw the box inside you, sealed, dark, unlabeled, and she smiled. Not because she felt safe, but because she finally found a place she could project her danger onto. You didn't explain yourself. That's what earned you her desire. She had met many men who spoke too quickly, too clearly, too much. Men who rushed to name their feelings, showcase their empathy, confess their wounds as if bearing them proved intimacy. But none of that ever made her trust. In fact, it repulsed her. Because deep down, she doesn't want your clarity. She wants your contradictions, your controlled silence. She wants the possibility that there is something hidden, something capable of harm, something real. Not the transparency of the domesticated, but the restraint of the dangerous. And so she leans in, not to understand, but to orbit the unknown inside you. A gravitational pull not of love, but of unsolved tension. You don't speak your motives. You don't label your feelings. You don't touch with trembling need. And because of this, she feels held not by comfort, but by pressure. The way an unopened letter presses against the mind more than one already read. The way silence speaks more than words ever could. It is not your virtue she tests, but your opacity, your resistance to the compulsion to explain. Because she grew up around men who lied while swearing truth. She learned that those who over-explained always betrayed it in the end. So now, when she meets a man who doesn't try to be believed, something strange happens inside her. Her body exhales. Her unconscious steps forward. She trusts what she cannot interpret as long as it doesn't beg to be interpreted. There is an animal inside her that responds to your distance more than your warmth. An animal trained to survive inconsistency. Your refusal to speak is read not as cold, but as strong. Your slow blink, your quiet detachment, your refusal to mirror her emotional tempo, it all becomes erotic. Not in the sexual sense alone, but in the deeper Freudian impulse, the need to recreate the unresolved, to attach to the enigma, to surrender to what cannot be pinned down. You are not a man to her. You are a symbol she can use to relive the puzzle of childhood, but this time with control. If you remain unreadable, you allow her to write the story. If you stay sealed, she becomes the author of your meaning, and that power intoxicates her. It feels like trust, but it's a trust built on your refusal to interrupt her projection. Your smile, when it comes, is too small to decode. Your compliments, when they surface, carry ambiguity, not assurance. Your silence in response to her questions forces her into imagination, and that's where you become irreplaceable. Not because of who you are, but because you gave her the stage of uncertainty. She doesn't want your motives, your past, your pain, not really. She wants to stare into your eyes and not know. She wants to wonder if you're dangerous, if you've suffered, if you could leave, if you're pretending, if you care. Because it is the suspense of motive that triggers her obsession, not the clarity of it. And when you finally say something that seems intimate, she feels rewarded. Not because of the content, but because she earned a drop from the well she couldn't drink from. You became real by staying elusive. But the moment you name yourself too clearly, the moment you package your intentions, confess your blueprint, declare your devotion, she recoils. Her smile stiffens. The spell fractures. Because now, she sees the edge of the mystery. Now, you're not a locked box, just a man trying not to be abandoned. And she's already lived that story. It bored her. It broke her. It made her feel trapped, not held. You may think love is built through exposure, but what grips her is your capacity to remain partially veiled. She needs a veil to believe. Full exposure to her unconscious mind is synonymous with collapse of power, of mystique, of polarity. That is why you confuse her most when you do nothing. When you don't react, don't explain, don't chase, she becomes obsessed, not with you, but with the echo you allow her to hear in herself. The man who holds back becomes her mirror, not a reflection of who she is, but of what she still cannot name. And so she keeps returning, keeps texting, keeps questioning, not to get answers, but to keep the questions alive. Because once she understands you, once she feels safe, the erotic tension dies. What replaces it is management, monitoring, the slow erosion of polarity through interpretation. You think silence is passive. It isn't. It is an active force, a sculptor of obsession, a knife with no wound but all the blood. And she responds to it with a paradox you never expected. She trusts you more. The less she can interpret. She senses you are not advertising a mask. You are wearing one, a real mask. And something about that honesty, the honesty of being unreadable, comforts the deepest animal in her spine. Even when she accuses you of hiding, she doesn't mean it. She wants you to hide. She needs you to keep something inside, folded, breathing, a motive you never name, a plan you never reveal. Because in her unconscious mythology, it's not truth that feels like trust. It's structure. And structure, for her, comes not from your clarity, but from your containment. So when you lie and she knows you're lying, but you do it without fear, without justification, without anxiety, she feels something she doesn't understand, arousal wrapped in safety. Not because the lie is elegant, but because the lie does not beg for acceptance. It exists, and that's all. Like the silence in a locked cathedral no one prays in anymore. You may never understand how deeply she needs your mystery, but if you dare to unravel it, if you open the box to prove you have nothing to hide, if you tell her what you really feel, you will break her spell. Because it wasn't built on who you are. It was built on not knowing who you are and feeling safe inside that ambiguity. And that is the paradox she will never admit. She doesn't trust men who reveal their motives. She only trusts the man who lets her wonder if he ever will. Every test she gives you is not hers, but inherited from the man who once made her guess. You think she's testing you, but the truth is far colder. You are standing in the shadow of a man who shaped her before she even had words to resist. A man who taught her that trust was a performance, that affection had to be earned through deciphering moods, that silence could be both punishment and seduction. That man wasn't you, but now, she sees him in you not through your actions, but through your refusal to explain them. She calls you distant, she probes, withdraws, returns, not because she doubts you, but because doubt is her native language. The world she was raised in spoke through omissions. Her father's love came like winter sunlight, present, but never warm. Present, but always somewhere else. When he came home, he didn't speak in feelings. He existed in tension, and she learned to read that silence like scripture. She learned to survive by interpreting facial muscles, footsteps in the hall, how long it took him to respond. Now, years later, when you pause before answering, when your gaze lingers just too long without comment, something old stirs in her spine. It is not suspicion, it is familiarity. It is the echo of a childhood shaped not by comfort, but by vigilance. The kind of vigilance that made her feel special when she got it right, when she predicted correctly, when she aligned with the unspoken rhythm of a man who never told her what he felt, but made her feel like she was the only one who might guess. That vigilance became her seduction. It became her hunger, not for love, but for proximity to the unreadable. And now she hands you the same puzzles, not because she wants to destroy you, but because her unconscious believes this is what love is. Love is guessing. Love is earning. Love is being allowed to stay close to a man who doesn't let everyone stay. If you explain too much, you break the spell. You become too easy, too exposed, like a test that gives away the answers before she's earned the right to pass. You are not being tested because you are suspicious. You are being tested because she is reenacting a pattern that gave her power in a powerless home. She flirts, pulls back, accuses, forgives not because she's unstable, but because this is the dance that once kept her father in the room. When she was little, she didn't know what emotionally unavailable meant, but she knew the look in his eye when she finally did something that made him laugh, that made him touch her head, not coldly, not distantly, but for a second like she mattered. She wants that moment back, and you carry the architecture of it in your restraint. Your refusal to collapse under her questioning makes her ache, not because she wants confession, but because she wants to see if you'll flinch. If you do, it confirms the worst. You're just another weak man pretending to be strong. But if you hold, if you let her suspicion move through you like wind through an unopened window, then she believes. She doesn't say it. She might even accuse you louder, but beneath the words, her animal is curling around the base of your silence. She is trusting you through resistance. There is something terrifying in this arrangement, because you are being held accountable not to who you are, but to the ghost of a father you never met. And if you fail her test, if you react, over-explain, plead for her understanding, you become the mother who apologized too much, the one who gave everything and still wasn't chosen. And she doesn't want to be the mother. She wants to be the child again, desperate to be seen, desperate to unlock the man behind the wall. So she tries. She wears dresses that remind her of being small. She raises her voice in ways that echo childhood tantrums. She storms out not because she wants to leave, but because she wants you to come after her the way he never did. Every emotional escalation is a question hurled backward through time. Would you have chosen me then? Would you have turned around? And if you do chase her, but do it without bleeding, without desperation, without flooding her with explanation, she breaks, not into tears, into softness, because her unconscious registers the difference. You are not her father. You are not even a man. You are the first version of him who stayed strong without turning cold, who didn't explain, but didn't abandon either. And in that moment, she no longer needs to test, because the test was never about proof. It was about permission to collapse into trust. But if you collapse first, if you confess too early, if you turn your back on your mystery to comfort her pain, then she has no choice. She becomes the father, and you become the needy child. And now the polarity is reversed. Now she must hold space for your feelings, make sense of your motives, manage your anxiety. And she hates that, because she already did that once, for years, and it killed something inside her. She doesn't want to mother a man. She wants to be undone by one. You must understand, this is not about cruelty. This is not about manipulation. It is about the structure of memory. Her nervous system doesn't know timelines. To her unconscious, you are the father. Now is then. And trust can only be earned by not giving her the answer, just the right to keep guessing safely. So she throws confusion at you like a flare. She says things she doesn't mean. She contradicts herself. She pulls you close just to push you again. It is not chaos. It is choreography. She is trying to reproduce the uncertainty that once made her feel alive, the terror that kept her sharp, the games she had to play to earn even a sliver of male attention. And she hopes, maybe this time, the man doesn't disappear. Maybe this time, the man stays silent, but also stays. Your job is not to decode her. It is to remain intact. Let her rage, let her accuse, let her cry, let her say you're hiding something. Don't defend, don't collapse, don't correct her memory, because you are not correcting her. Now you would be correcting her childhood, and that is not your right. Just stand there, and if she says, "Tell me what you feel," wait. Not to punish her, but because if you rush to answer, you rob her of the only feeling that ever made her feel safe, the sacred tension of not knowing, the erotic architecture of a man who isn't eager to be loved. You are not failing her by being distant. You are failing her only if you become transparent too quickly, because trust, for her, is not built through explanation. It is built through your ability to remain larger than her suspicion, and that requires silence. Not the cold kind, but the kind that says, "I could explain, but I choose not to, because I do not owe you my insides just to make you feel safe." That silence, if it holds, becomes the only thing she truly trusts. Truth makes her anxious. Only a controlled illusion lets her relax into the feeling of control. You think she's craving honesty, but she's not. She's craving containment, and your truth, in its raw, formless urgency, doesn't contain her. It spills, it overwhelms, it exposes. She wants your mask more than your mouth, your silence more than your sincerity, because a well-delivered lie, held with calm hands and no apology, offers her the one thing your bleeding truth cannot structure, and structure, to her unconscious mind, is safety. So you say what you must, not because it's accurate, but because it stabilizes the atmosphere. You say you're fine. You say you're not thinking about leaving. You say you weren't bothered, and she breathes again. Not because she believes you, she doesn't, but because the ritual of the lie soothes her body more than the content ever could. The lie is not a deception. It is choreography. A dance you perform for the purpose of preserving her illusion of control. When you tell her the whole truth, when you confess that you don't know where this is going, or that you're unsure about how you feel, you shatter the surface beneath her, because now she must do the containing. Now she must hold the ambiguity, and that's not how the arrangement works. She wants to feel like the interpreter, not the interpreter's subject. She wants to guess, not carry. The lie allows her to stay in the role her unconscious craves, the one who senses something unspoken, not the one who manages your unraveling. That's why she pokes. That's why she asks questions she already knows the answers to. Are you talking to someone else? Do you think about your ex? Are you losing interest? She's not seeking confession. She's observing containment, She's watching to see if your voice shakes, if your eyes flicker, if your rhythm breaks. She wants you to lie beautifully, confidently, like a man who understands the value of controlled illusion. Because the lie, when done well, confirms something far deeper than truth, that you are capable of leading the emotional atmosphere, that you are not a slave to transparency, that you can protect the frame of the relationship, even from your own chaos. And in that protection, she relaxes, not because she's naive, but because she remembers what it felt like when her world collapsed under too much truth. A father who suddenly revealed everything, a man who wept at the wrong time, a lover who confessed infidelities only to be absolved in her lap. None of it made her feel closer. It made her feel cornered. You mistake intimacy for nakedness, but she wants elegance, and elegance means restraint. It means knowing how to say just enough to feed the fantasy, but never enough to kill it. If she suspects something, let her suspect. If she accuses, let her circle. But don't rush to break the spell, because once you start spilling, she sees the edge of the story. And a story with visible edges is a story that can't hold her mystery. She prefers half answers, calm contradictions, a raised eyebrow instead of a confession. The man who says, "Of course not," with a stillness that feels both comforting and unreachable. It's not about deceit, it's about design. She doesn't want to know who you really are, she wants to feel who you're being. And when you let her feel safe inside your fiction, she gives more of herself than she ever would to your sincerity. Even when she says, "Be honest with me," listen to her tone, not her words. If her voice is low, uncertain, if her eyes can't hold yours, she doesn't want honesty. She wants containment. She wants a fantasy she can believe in for another week. And if you give her brutal truth in that moment, it's not liberation, it's abandonment, because now she must mother your feelings instead of spiraling in her own mythology. Understand this, the lie she wants isn't about hiding betrayal. It's about holding the erotic architecture of tension. Tension between what she knows and what you don't say. Tension between what she suspects and what you allow her to imagine. It's not deception that arouses her, it's the discipline, your ability to carry complexity without dumping it on her lap, your ability to maintain ambiguity without collapsing into guilt or self-explanation. You were taught that honesty earns respect, but in the realm of the feminine unconscious, elegant illusion earns devotion. When she sees that you can lie without fear, hold back without apology, and redirect the emotional tempo without flinching, she relaxes. Because now, the dance is intact. The mystery is preserved. The mask is still on. And paradoxically, that's when she feels closest to you. Because she doesn't want your chaos, she wants your curation. She wants the curated version of your darkness, the one you shape and present with calm hands. Not the full dump of your trauma, not the frantic blur of your indecision. She doesn't want to hold your insides. She wants to circle the sealed container where they're stored and feel privileged just to be near it. That nearness, that proximity to your restraint, is what turns her on. Not the confession, not the catharsis. So when you lie and she knows it, but you do it without blinking, without shame, something inside her opens, because now she is free, free to trust you without needing to believe you, free to surrender to the feeling rather than interrogate the facts. And that freedom is worth more to her than your vulnerability. This is not manipulation. This is design. Freud knew it. The unconscious does not care about truth. It cares about tension, about architecture, about the repetition of unresolved patterns. And when you give her something stable, even if it's not real, she stays. Because realness, as you've been taught, is about content. But to her, realness is about rhythm. And rhythm only exists when you control your expression, not when you spew it out like a faucet. You must become the mirror that distorts just enough to be intriguing. The surface she stares into and sees fragments, not facts. When she says, "Tell me the truth," tell her what allows her to stay. Not because she's weak, but because her desire isn't built on knowledge. It's built on fantasy wrapped in structure. And if one day she walks away, it won't be because you lied. It'll be because you stopped lying well, because your lies became leaky, anxious, full of apology. She doesn't want your shame. She wants your command. If you're going to lie, lie like a king. If you're going to withhold, withhold like a priest. If you're going to be silent like a myth. Because the moment you give her full access to your internal world, unfiltered, emotional, unshaped, she will flinch. Not because you betrayed her, but because you asked her to hold what was never hers to hold. And no woman truly wants to become the emotional spine of a man who can't carry his own. So she tests your boundary, not to break it, but to see if it holds. And the lie, the clean, unapologetic, steady lie, is sometimes the strongest boundary of all. It says, "I will not unravel just to be understood." And in that refusal, she feels the one thing her body has been aching for since childhood. She feels safe. A locked room. A woman sits beside the door, never asking for the key. She only listens for the quiet breath inside, not to open it, just to know that something is alive behind it, still breathing, still hidden